being here in Toronto. It's like a homecoming for us now. We've enjoyed coming to visit you for quite a few years now, and that's a privilege. One of the things that we observe is that when we travel to just talk about things the Lord has given us, we are ministered to by the faith and the love and the hope that we find in people like yourselves. It's a great thing to be able to travel anywhere in the world, and if people there know Jesus and love Him, then that's home. That's a good place to be. The love of Jesus, what it is, none but His loved ones know. You know, just as I'm telling you that, one of the things that I've observed back home is that I used to ride a motorcycle a little bit, and one of the things that happens if you're riding down the road on a motorcycle is that another biker coming the other way, he will or she will acknowledge you as if we know, don't we? We know what this is, you know. Well, you know, it's so exhilarating to ride a motorcycle, and only bikers know that. Well, the love of Jesus, what it is, none but His loved ones know. It's good fellowship, isn't it? Yes. And I want to thank those who have looked after us, Jane in particular. We've spent time in her home again, and not just with her, but with all of your people over the years. It's been a real blessing. I'm just making this little speech because you never know when it might be the last time, and so I want you to know that we like being here with you. This weekend I want to share some things that have been sitting up in my mind lately. Been studying in the book of Acts a little bit about Christian origins and trying to capture what it was for those who first believed in Jesus, what it must have been like, and what the impact was for them. It meant big changes for them. There was a newness about it, faith in Jesus. It meant adjustments in what they thought and the way they behaved. And I've tried to think what that means for me now. So Jesus is ever new, and those who want to follow Him will be challenged every step of the way. What it means to obey Jesus. You can't get into a rut if you follow Jesus. There are new challenges every day, new occasions teach new duties. Time makes ancient good uncouth. So I'm going to take a few thoughts from the 10th and the 11th chapters of Acts tonight, and I won't read them out to you, but that's what we're basing our remarks on tonight. Tomorrow we'll look at the 2nd chapter of Acts and talk about the implications of Christ's words when He said, "You will be my witnesses." What did that mean to them? What does it mean for us now? And then before lunch tomorrow we'll just take a little side detour perhaps and look at something in Romans which impressed me recently, something that Paul felt about what the gospel meant to him and what the implications of that are for us. So those are the things that I want to share with you while we're here this few days. Some of you may be familiar with, pardon me, Chaim Potok, who's a Jewish author, writes about his Jewishness. He tells a story of two Jewish boys who were growing up in New York City during the Second World War. The boys were Danny Saunders and Reuven Malta, and though they were both Jewish, they came from different departments of Judaism. They came from different sects in the Jewish faith. Danny's father was Reb Saunders, and he was the leader in a strict Hasidic sect of Judaism, and he had an encyclopedic knowledge of the Talmud. Danny, his boy, was exceptionally intelligent, and Reb Saunders, every Shabbat, he would spend 4 hours with his son Danny, schooling him in the Torah and in the Talmud. And apart from those 4-hour sessions once a week every Sabbath, Reb Saunders never ever spoke to his son at all. And this was to prepare him to become a rabbi just like him. That was the way he was disciplining his son. As far as Reuven Malta was concerned, his father was a teacher in one of the Jewish schools in New York City, and he was highly regarded, but he had a different way of understanding the Talmud and Torah. He was something of a modernist, perhaps, in the opinion of other Jews, but he was highly regarded. As the story unfolds, we learn that Danny doesn't want to be a rabbi like his father, but he's resigned to the fact that that's what he'll have to be, because his father expects it. And he doesn't want to let him down. His real interest is psychology, and so under cover of bedclothes he reads books on psychology at night, and he has to keep that a secret, knowing that his dad would be enraged if ever he knew he was reading Sigmund Freud. As the events of the war unfold in Europe and the Jews begin to die by millions, there's a Zionist movement begins to gain ground in New York City, and Reuven's father becomes its chief spokesman. But Danny's father, the Reb, he has nothing to do with the Zionist movement. He thinks Jews should just humbly wait for Messiah to come and set up his own kingdom. But Mr. Malta thinks that Jews should get off their backsides and help Messiah to get his kingdom going in the earth. And as a result of that disagreement between the two parents, that difference of opinions, the rabbi forbids his son Danny to have anything to do with Reuven. And this is very awkward, because they are going to the same school. And so months go by and they pass each other in the corridors and they can't speak. Reuven thinks that's madness, and he manages to let his friend Danny know that he thinks it's mad. And by, Danny reveals that he has decided that he's never ever going to be a rabbi, but he's not going to tell his father that. He's too afraid. One day he'll tell him, but not now. He can't. But because of the dissonance between where his own life is really headed and where his father thinks his son's life is headed, the boy becomes an emotional wreck. His father's still covering him with silence every day, and he loses weight. The boy becomes haggard and drawn. And while the Jews are being reduced to ashes in the Nazi ovens, simply because they are Jews, the Jewish community in New York becomes fractured. It becomes full of hostility. People begin to fight with one another, and the friendship of these two boys suffers almost irreparably, almost extinguished by a religious viewpoint that destroys or strangles fellowship. The book of Acts takes us back to the beginnings of Christianity. Peter is a new Christian, and he is a devout Jew. He's had an experience that affects him profoundly. He has been to the house of a Gentile, and he has actually sat down at the same table and eaten food with a non-Jew. In those days, the social significance of a meal eaten with another person was far-reaching. The ritual cleanliness of a pious Jew was to a large extent determined by obedience to laws of cleanliness or laws of ritual cleanliness, cleanness and uncleanness. Gentiles, of course, had no hang-ups at all about clean and unclean.